So I'm looking around my house for something to eat, and I see that I have not one, not two, but three separate cantaloupes. And I think to myself, who in God's good name needs this many cantaloupes? Now I can understand having like a lot of tomatoes, maybe like 10 bananas or something, but three whole cantaloupes, that is just madness. Deranged even. This person should be locked up for having this many in one fruit bowl. So anywho, I'm thinking what I can do with these absolutely insane amounts of cantaloupe. And then it hit me. I discovered the reason why God created cantaloupe and myself. I would just use the extra cantaloupe to destroy the earth. No, hear me out. Okay, so if you look at the cantaloupes, you'll see that now if you take the yeah, never mind. I'm just goddamn insane and want to destroy the earth with cantaloupes. Let's go. So the first thing I needed to do is figure out how I would go about destroying the world. Luckily, I'm a registered psychopath with access to the internet, so I can get pretty creative in my methods. Of the methods that I developed and found to be most effective, I came up with 4 and then a few special modifications on some of them. The 4 ones are Cantaloupes from Space, Cantaloupe Star, Cantaloupe Coup, and Cantaloupe Crusher. As you can see, I've had far too much fun with this project than should be humanly possible. Once I have finished explaining all of these wondrous ways to begin Armageddon with cantaloupes, I'll rank them on how feasible they are. And, without further ado, let me show you how to end the world with cantaloupes, for fellow psychopaths like me need to know this information. So, 65 million years ago, a 50-mile-across asteroid traveling at around 30 kilometers per second wiped out the dinosaurs. Now, this was a neat experiment, but it didn't wipe the Earth from existence, which I frankly find unforgivable, and the asteroid died in vain. So, we just have to do it ourselves, but better. Now, you Google the amount of energy required to destroy the Earth, you get 10 to the power 32 joules, because apparently scientists are as much of a psychopath as I am, and this is what they do with their free time. So, not sure if that's comforting. But now that we have the amount of energy required, we just now have to convert cantaloupes to that energy through different means. That's what all these are. Now we have 3 main ways of doing this, which are just different ways of getting the same thing in fun, unique, and ultimately humanity, possibly world-ending ways. Plan A. So, a regular cantaloupe weighs about 3 pounds, or 1.367 kilograms for you Europeans. But with that, we can then throw it really fast at the Earth. If we do that, it could technically wipe it from existence, but it has to be going really fast, like 10 to the power of 16 times the speed of light. That kind of violates the laws of physics. But I think physics can make an exception, because it's a cantaloupe, and, it's a cantaloupe. Also, it's a cantaloupe. So I think it can make an exception just this once, because, of course, it's a cantaloupe. Oh, hi, physics. Oh, I'm good. How about you? Huh. Anywho, I just had a question. Yes. Could you make an exception to the whole universal speed limit thing? It's for a cantaloupe. What do you mean, no? But I need to destroy the Earth with cantaloupes. Come on, man. Oh, you're gonna get canceled on Twitter for this. So after rigorous debate, I have discovered that physics is a cuck. So we need to change our science from one cantaloupe to many cantaloupes. And yes, I technically know that if it's traveling at the speed of light, it will gain mass and will also destroy the Earth, but that's just one big cantaloupe, and frankly, that's kind of crazy. One big cantaloupe. It's much more feasible to just throw a whole bunch of tiny cantaloupes traveling at basically the speed of light. So, if it takes 10 to the power of 16 times the speed of light to destroy the Earth with one cantaloupe, then it just takes 10 to the power of 16 near light speed cantaloupes to also do the same thing. Now, I rigorously tested the world's cantaloupe production, and frankly, I was disappointed. I went to farms across all 6 of the 7 continents. I went to space, and after that, I went to McDonald's for a Whopper, and after that, I went home and Googled it. So, the world produces around 2.8 times 10 to the power of 10, which is over 20 billion cantaloupes per year. Disappointing. I'm disappointed in you. Now, obviously, this is a frightening statistic. This means that there are 2 cantaloupes per person on the planet. Now, I suggest you ask yourself on how many cantaloupes you can take on in a fight. If it's 2 or less, I'm sorry, but you're as good as dead. Anywho, so you just take that number, which is, 10 times the power of 16, which is the number of cantaloupes we need, divided by the amount that we produce a year, and we get a grand total of it only taking 480,000 years. Huh. Okay, well, it's obvious that the society is keeping the farmers down, and also cantaloupes. Now, it is basically certain that all land on the world's surface will be used for cantaloupes at some point in the near future. I think that's where we all know where this is going. I think it's something both parties can agree on. This was attempted in prehistory, and ever since that, with our modern tools, we can now finally fulfill the dreams of our ancestors and do what they never could. Make every corner of the earth cantaloupe fields. And with this wonderful, beautiful, holy, just wonderful, I already said that, really good system where we'll finally have 4.08 times 10 to the power of 15 cantaloupes per year. For reference, this would be 12.24 times 10 to the power of 15 pounds of cantaloupe, or the weight of Mount Everest. Oh, did I say the weight of one Mount Everest? I meant to say over 34. Yum. With these cantaloupes, it would only take around 2.5 years. Very reasonable. But some are not satisfied with this. They always say things like, oh, we're in the cantaloupe rod, or why are you not in a mental health facility, or oh, why are you in my house? I'm going to call the police. So, with your obviously idiotic responses in mind, I have come back to you with another way to destroy the Earth with cantaloupes. In this method, we are going to take a little shortcut. Instead of hitting the Earth with cantaloupes, we're just going to knock the moon into the Earth. Now, this wouldn't wipe the Earth from existence, unfortunately, but it would wipe away all life, and then there would be no one left to criticize my shortcomings, so I think that is a pretty good method. So, the moon is one speedy boy, traveling at over 1 kilometer per minute, and is also quite chunky, which means it has a lot of kinetic energy that we need to stop. About 3.84 times 10 to the power of 28 joules, to be precise. So, if we want to destroy life, all we need to do is hit it with that much energy in the opposite direction, basically stopping it, and then the Earth's gravity will just, pull it in and destroy us all. How many light speed cantaloupes will we do the job? What we need to do is take the energy amount from the last solution, and we get 3.84 times 10 to the power of 12 cantaloupes, which in our optimal cantaloupe output would take less than 9 hours. Finally, a quick and easy and just, yummy solution to end all life. Finally. Okay. Now, some of you may say this plan is not the most practical. And if you say that, you're obviously wrong. As deranged as I am, of course. But just so that I may show you, there are some more methods and once I have shown you these, I can enslave the doubters' minds and add them into my Canteloupian theocracy and rule the world, and then end it with cantaloupes. Kind of my whole thing. Number 2, Cantaloupe Star. Hey kids, have you ever wondered how hot the sun really is? Well, wonder no more. For the low price of a whole heaping spaghetti pile of cantaloupe, you can turn the air on Earth into a star. During the construction of the first nuclear bomb, the scientists feared that they would set the atmosphere on fire. This basically means that the atmosphere becomes so hot that the nitrogen in the air begins to fuse to other nitrogen, which produces enough energy to cause more nitrogen to fuse, basically turning the air into the center of the sun. So, with this fear, they wrote a mini paper on what would be needed to do this to the air, which, thank you, scientists. Yeah, I guess you're just as much a psychopath as me. You've been helping me this entire way through. Now, I'm probably on an FBI watch list, but there won't be any FBI left once I'm finished with what I'm doing. So, to turn the air into the sun, we just have to heat a sphere of air 114 meters across to 10 to the power of 10 Kelvin. So, now that we have to convert calories in these cantaloupes into heat. Now, one cantaloupe has about 185 calories, and 1 calorie is about 4.814 joules, meaning that 1 cantaloupe is about 778 joules. Now we need to find the energy required to heat the air, which is around 1 with 19 zeros. Bit, just a small amount. The cantaloupes required to produce that much energy is 1.29 times 10 to the power of 16, which would take only just a year and a half with our perfect, beautiful, gracious, really good, as I said earlier, system of cantaloupe production, of which the world has never seen, but soon will. Soon! Number 3, the cantaloupe coup. Now, some of you may think the previous methods were not really gentlemanlike, which I can kind of understand. So I propose to you a much more gentleman solution to ending the world. We chuck cantaloupes at extremely fast speeds, hitting the victim's skull, liquidating their brain matter, killing them instantly. Now, I believe this is a much more sportsmanlike solution, of course. And we're only going for headshots here to add to our sick sniper frag video. But first, we must determine how squishable a human skull is. A human skull can withstand 236.5 kilograms per centimeter squared. So we just have to determine how much area is being applied to the human skull from the cantaloupes. Now, we're assuming the cantaloupes squish when they pat the skull, so we're just going to go with their cross-sectional diameter at their biggest point, which is 10 centimeters across. So with this, we can gauge how much force is required for each centimeter squared. Once we convert that into joules, we get 1,816.7 joules per kill. And then we just take these joules, multiply them by the human population, and we get how many joules are required to kill all of humanity, which is 1.4 times 10 to the power of 13 joules. So if we take this energy requirement and use it using the calories from the last requirement, we can find out how many cantaloupes are required to produce that much energy, which is about 1.8 times 10 to the power of 10 joules, plus 7.8 billion for each human, because 1 cantaloupe is used to kill each person. And with all of this, it would be slightly more than a year with our own current inferior garbage cantaloupe production to obtain. Now, this system would be sort of like a campaign of rooting out human resistances and showing them the truth, the cantaloupe, as it hits them very fast in the head. Luckily, I just have the blueprints for this. As you can see, these units will go across the countryside, making the world a better place. And if you say they look scary, you just have a wrong mind. They are entirely for... I mean, look at this. Look at the dome structure. That looks like a cantaloupe. It's comforting. I want to hug that if I could get close enough, which I can't. I wish I could see the world and when these are implemented. And with your help, we can. Number 4, the cantaloupe crusher. Now, this one here is the final solution. Oh, wait. Nope, that one's taken. The finale solution. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so some of you may notice and obviously are distressed by the fact that none of these things maximize the pain a person can feel. So for you, I have this solution. Now, many others have noticed that all these methods require a large deal of cantaloupes. And these cantaloupes weigh a great deal. So we just have to convert the weight of these cantaloupes into pain. getting crushed by cantaloupes. That's what we're doing here, folks. A normal person will die after 15 minutes if they are under 317.5 kilograms of weight, and one cantaloupe is about 1.4 kilograms, meaning that it would take 233 cantaloupes to kill a human being after 15 minutes. Which now brings into the scene my never-before-seen, obviously genius, mentally deranged genius, of course, equation, which is the human population minus the number of cantaloupes divided by 233 divided by 4, x. And if this equals 0, whatever x equals is the number of hours before all human life is removed from the planet. And if anyone says that this equation isn't impressive, or it's very basic, or that it's basically been done before, well, they're obviously going to be the first one put into the crushers. So the population is about 7.8 billion, as we all know, and the number of cantaloupes with our inferior system is 2.08 times 10 to the power of 10, which means that the equation is about over 22 million deaths per hour. Pretty good. Which means in 4 hours, or the same amount of time for me to finish my sugar-induced madness, which kickstarted this project, we will have more people dead than have died in World War II. In 15 scream-filled, hope-filled days, the human race will be gone, and the cantaloupes will reign supreme across a barren world. Now, I believe the time has come where the part of the video where I rank these glorious methods on how feasible I think they are and how fun I think they are for the end of the world. At the very bottom, in the lowest tier, we have removing the Earth entirely from existence. This is definitely a fun idea, but the amount of time and energy required is just barely unrealistic, and frankly, there are much more realistic and sensible options, as you have seen throughout this. Along with the fact that removing the Earth from existence has no purpose, since if all the people are gone, then no one will know the Earth is or is not there. Above that, in second to last place, we have the Canteloupe star, which would be a beautiful thing to behold, but implemented would be very difficult, since the energy required is not the whole story of implementation. Since those calories are converted to energy via combustion, air would have to be used in getting the heat, which would cool the sphere. It's essentially a fire, and fires can only get to a certain temperature, since new air has to come in and that cools down the fire. Not to mention that it would have to be an instant process and would melt any container. And if the container that could hold the heat, it would have to be heavily insulated so that it does not cool. And even then, if we can find a material that can survive literal temperatures of the sun, then I don't think we'll be using it for this. We'll be using it to put into our robots or something else, or cantaloupes, or, other things that aren't cantaloupes, when there are much better options to be had. Above this, we have Cantaloupe Crusher. Although it is one of the technically easiest ways to do with requiring no electricity and just a massive amount of cantaloupes, unfortunately, human will is a thing, and human rights. Because if we want to get all 7.8 billion people, we have to basically create the cantaloupe theocracy at that point, and then push everyone in. So creating the cantaloupe theocracy, easy peasy. The problem is, if we have the cantaloupe theocracy, then we obviously have access to everything. So we might as well use it for better methods than just putting people into cantaloupe crusher. We still may put a few people because, pain. Above this, we have the Cantaloupe coup. I really like this one because I think it's the most realistic to implement if we do not have a Cantaloupean theocracy. Since it would be a campaign across nations, we could take one nation down at a time, and just really make people live in fear, which would emphasize the pain factor if it's in a campaign. Right? Be more mental pain rather than pain from cantaloupes themselves, which, works as well. I also really like the design of that, and I spent way too much time on the blueprints for it, so you have a personal attachment to it. Now, my favorite system is to hit the moon with cantaloupes and knock it into the earth. Not only would this be a sight to behold, but it would likely take a few days for it to hit the Earth, depending on where you hit it from and what angle. But once this happens, Majora's Mask. You see the moon coming, you're absolutely terrified, people are panicking, there's rioting. And then everyone knows that the Canteloupes are the true way to go. And then the moon hits the Earth and all life is wiped out. You see a great wall of red as the ground peels up beneath you and you're incinerated in an instant. Deafening roar of the crater hitting it. The Earth is knocked around. It is Armageddon as we know it. Now, frankly, I think the Cantaloupe coup and knocking the moon into the Earth are tied. I really like both of them. Anywho, I'm gonna go sleep now. I've had way too much fun on this project, and I think my brain is hemorrhaged. Anywho, toodaloo, I guess.